work. And the people spoke. Make no mistake about it, my friends Republicans, the American people are never going to forget that it was you who shut down the government of the people.
Time is Texas.
Mr. Speaker, it is not me. It will not be me. I am here to help, and the legislation that's on the floor is about a continuing resolution. Mr. Speaker, at this time I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Houston, Texas, gentleman, Congressman Culberson.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Democrat side of the aisle can say it till they're blue in the face, the sky is green. That doesn't make it green. It is not true. This legislation is designed to keep the government open by fully funding it at levels that the Senate has already agreed to. I think it's also to get a few other things straight around here and point out that Social Security checks, even in the unlikeliest event the government were to close down, will continue to flow because all mandatory programs administered by the government, their employees are considered to be essential. And Social Security checks are obviously essential. Those employees are essential. Social Security will continue to flow. My colleague from Texas said that children would be thrown off of their parents' insurance policy. That law took effect last year. It's not affected by what's before the House today. My colleague also said children or people with pre-existing conditions could be denied coverage. That is also incorrect because that law took effect last year. The bill before the House today fully funds the government. We're even separately funding the military, and we're going to give a stark choice to the President of the United States and the Senate. Do you want to shut down the government, or do you want to force onto the American people a 2,500-page bill that was forced through here so fast, Speaker Pelosi said, we have to pass the bill to find out what's in it. One of my colleagues from North Carolina just pointed out many Americans are waking up today to discover there's a 3.8% tax on the sale of their house. How many other surprises do we have in this 2,500-page bill? All Republicans are asking tonight is give the nation a year to study a 2,500-page bill that even Speaker Pelosi hadn't a clue what was in it.
That is shutting it down. Would the gentleman yield?
Deserve to read and understand one of the most important pieces of legislation passed in the history of this Congress, which will socialize the greatest health care system ever created. And we are in the House tonight fulfilling our responsibility as adults to fund the government, to fund the military. And by the way, the Senate has had the Defense Department appropriations bill for over 90 days and military construction in VA for 90 days at least.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentlelady from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Engel.
Gentleman from New York is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, by refusing to advance a resolution that can pass the Senate, the Republican majority has made the reckless and irresponsible choice to shut down the federal government. The Affordable Care Act is the law of the land. It was passed by a majority in this House and the Senate, signed into law by the President, and has been upheld by the Supreme Court. To try to repeal the Affordable Care Act at a time when we're talking about funding the government is like mixing apples with oranges. I've heard so many horror stories about the Affordable Care Act, all of which is irresponsible. Let me say some facts about it.
Gentlemen will suspend. The House shall come to order. Members are advised to take their conversations from the aisle.
Okay. Gives me a chance to catch my thoughts.
Gentleman from New York may proceed.
In my state of New York, people who enroll in the highest tier plans our health insurance exchange will offer can expect to see a 53% reduction compared to this year's individual rates. The average approved rates for the individual silver plan in New York is 10% lower than previously forecast by the CBO. These reductions don't even take into account the subsidies that will be available for many New Yorkers purchasing coverage on the exchange, which will lead to even lower costs. It is time for Republicans to accept reality and allow this law to start helping the American people. The government should not be shut down. This is a very, very dangerous course. Would you rather see small business owners struggle, as the SBA will be unable to review loan applications, loan guarantees? Republicans should not shut the government down, and we will resist.
Gentleman's time has expired.
In shutting the government down. You can yell all you
Speaker.
want, but you're not silencing the voice and not silencing the voice of the American people. Yell all you want. You're not on
Time
the wrong side
has
of history.
expired. Will be in order.
I reserve my time.
Gentleman from Texas reserves his time. Gentlelady from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Maryland, Miss Edwards.
Gentlelady from Maryland is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this rule and to the underlying amendments. I want to be very clear. I don't even have a voice, but I want to let America know that House Republicans are shutting down the government. They're doing it intentionally. They're doing it on purpose. Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
The House shall come to order. The gentlelady deserves to be heard. Gentlelady from Maryland may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, 1.4 million active duty personnel won't get their paychecks. Half of the federal civilian employees won't get paid. Those who do show up at work won't be paid. House Republicans are shutting down the government. And even as we mourn the tragedy at the Navy Yard here in Washington, active duty military would be guaranteed to receive their pay, but their civilian counterparts who risk their lives in service to the mission would not. House Republicans are shutting down the government. We're losing waves of federal employees, furloughs, undermining their benefits, freezing their salaries. I urge my colleagues to reject this, and tonight I want it to be known the Senate won't take it up, the President won't sign it. House Republicans are shutting down the government.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reserve my time, and I am through with my speakers to advise the gentlewoman, and I will then, as she finishes, offer a close.
Gentleman from Texas has 2½ minutes remaining, and the gentlelady from New York has 1½ minutes
I understand that you are prepared to close. I will have no more further speakers.
That would be
after
correct.
this.
I thank the gentlewoman.
Very well. Then I'm pleased to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Vermont, Mr. Welch.
For 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Speaker, what you're proposing in this legislation, basically shutting down the government and stiffing our creditors, it's really stupid. And here's why. We have got to move on. We've had a debate about health care. Some of us are strongly in favor of this legislation. Some of us are strongly opposed to it. That's a legitimate policy debate. But the folks who for it won in Congress, they won in the Supreme Court, and they won in the last presidential election. At a certain point, I've been on the losing side, by the way, it's time to say, sober up, move on, get on with the program, focus on what are the implementation challenges and work on them together. But the notion that we'd actually suggest that it's possible for us to consider stiffing our creditors, shutting down the government, inflicting pain on innocent people, that's bizarre. It has no place in this debate. Sometimes we win debates, sometimes we lose, but either side we've got to move on. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentlelady from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to urge my colleagues to vote no on this rule and no on this bill because it is, and no question about it, a yes vote on either one of them is a vote to continue the shutdown of the House. The Senate will not take this up. We're absolutely certain of it, and we are on the road to shutdown. The Republican Party insists on doing that. Do not help them. Vote no. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady yields back her time. Gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr.
2½
Speaker.
minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to just go through the things that we've talked about that are the attributes about why we are here tonight. The cost to taxpayers. $716 billion was cut from senior care Medicare to fund Obamacare. That harms our seniors. The cost to employers. Just one example. Delta Airlines announced that Obamacare will cost its company $100 million in increased health care costs over the next year. Americans are losing their current health care coverage. We read about and we know that UPS, Walgreens, and many other employers are losing their health care coverage that they had today. Fewer hours and fewer full-time jobs. Since Obamacare was passed, there have been 7 part-time jobs for every one full-time job that was added. Mr. Speaker, this is not a way to move our country forward. Mr. Speaker, the Republican Party is prepared. We believe and can substantiate that a yes vote is for making sure that we keep this government open and something that the American people want and need. And that's why the Republican Party, 233 strong, is here tonight. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on the rule and yes on the underlying legislation, and I yield back the balance of my time, and I move the previous question.
The question is on ordering the previous question on the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Gentlelady from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I request the yeas and nays.
Yeas and nays have been requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. Sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 8 and Clause 9 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on ordering the previous question will be followed by 5-minute votes on adoption of the resolution if ordered, and the motion to suspend on H.R. 2251. This is a 15-minute vote.
With the end of the fiscal year 2013 looming, the House in on this Saturday to consider changes to the Senate-passed continuing resolution. The Senate passing the continuing resolution yesterday, stripping out the health care defunding language, shortening the CR to November the 15th. Earlier this evening, not that long ago, the House Rules Committee met to consider the rule for changes to that Senate bill that came over yesterday. One amendment would repeal the law's 2.3 medical device tax that went into effect this year. The other would delay until January 1st of 2015 most of the elements of the health care law and allow companies and insurance providers to opt out of the mandated birth control coverage for religious or moral reasons, and both amendments would once again set the CR expiration date at December 15th, not November the 15th. This is the previous question vote. They will vote on the rule for debate coming up next, and during this vote, we are going to open up our phone lines to get your thoughts on the federal funding debate that's going on this Saturday. Here's how to join the conversation by phone. If you're a Democrat, it's 202-585-3885. For Republicans, that's 202-585-3886. Independents and all others, it's 202-585-3887. And you can also join us on Facebook, facebook.com/cspan. We're been asking all day, who is responsible for the current fiscal stalemate in Washington? We'll read some posts and read some tweets as well. The hashtag is CSPAN Chat. Robert Costa is the Washington editor for the National Review, joining us live from Capitol Hill. Thanks for being with us. How have House Republicans proposed to change the Senate CR? What are the chances that the Senate will accept those changes?
The chances of the Senate accepting any kind of bill that the House sends over that includes a delay or defund of Obamacare is basically nil. Harry Reid came out with a statement today saying he just won't cut a deal on any kind of CR that includes Obamacare provisions or demands. So Speaker John Boehner now is in a very difficult position. He does not want to have a government shutdown, but at the same time, many conservative members of his conference are asking for an 11th-hour fight. They want to keep fighting on Obamacare, and tonight's vote's about sending the Senate a message, asking them to delay Obamacare's implementation for a year, but of course it's going to probably fizzle over there in the upper chamber.
Well, you're writing today, there's been some other reporting about a proposed change to the CR, language known as the Vitter Amendment. What is that, and how might that play into the debate in the coming days?
Here's what I'm hearing from my sources within the House Republican leadership. So tonight the House is voting on a CR that delays Obamacare. That will have a quick death in the Senate. That brings Speaker John Boehner back to step one, back to the page one. He has to come up with a new strategy. And as the government prepares to shut down, one thing that's being floated is having a CR that funds the government through the fall, but also includes the Vitter Amendment. And that ends subsidies within Obamacare for congressional members and congressional staffers. So it wouldn't be a delay of Obamacare, it wouldn't be a full defunding, but it'd be something. And so House leadership thinks that could be a concession they could ring out at the last minute.
Robert Costa joining us from Capitol Hill. As we mentioned, we're going to open up our phone lines. Robert Costa is going to stay with us through this vote and talk to you as well. So let's get to some of those calls. We'll go first to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Paul's on our Democrats line. Welcome.
Thank you. This is Paul. I agree with Robert Costa that the Senate will reject whatever the Republicans say, because they're not going to accept it. And the president has drawn a red line that says he will not sign the CR if it includes the delay or defunding of the Obama legislation.
Robert Costa, what have we heard from the White House today about what the House is doing today?
The White House and Senate Democrats have balked at what House Republicans are doing today. The House Republicans are trying to maneuver to come up with some kind of demand that will make the White House cave. But this is a very different political climate than 2011. Remember in 2011, the White House did deal, for example, on the debt limit, and the Republicans were able to get the sequestration passed as part of the Budget Control Act. But right now, the president just won re-election, and you just don't see the Senate Democrats or the White House at all willing to deal, especially when it comes to Obamacare, because that's the president's signature law, and he doesn't feel pressured to try to tinker with it.
But on the other side, you're writing today about what's going on today. You write in your article this afternoon that, talking about the House Republican Conference, that conference's unity is fragile, and any new plan will need to be unveiled carefully. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that ever since January, when the fiscal cliff happened and there was a coup attempt against Speaker Boehner, the Speaker's power has been very fragile. He's trying to every day control various blocks within his own conference. So as much as he wants to have his own strategy, he always has to consult with his members about how to proceed. So Speaker John Boehner wants to avoid a shutdown. He wants to fund the government. He eventually wants to deal on the debt limit. But first he has to convince conservative members just to fund the government, and that's a difficult task. And so that's why I mean when I talk about how he thinks about his strategy, it's always about moving his members toward the leadership strategy. It's never an easy journey for him.
Let's go to Stanton, Virginia on our Republican line. Ron. That's not Ron. Hang on there. Well, let's go to Ron. You're on the air. Go ahead. Stanton, Virginia.
Ron.
You're on the air. Go ahead.
This is Ron Bressler. I'm in Stanton, Virginia. I think that the Democrats is using this. They've got to dictate everything. President Clinton said, in fact, on TV, that they were going to dictate everything that went on. This Obamacare is like buying a Cadillac. You're buying the Obama name, Obamacare. It's going to hurt a lot of people. I only make $17,000 a year. I'm not even a middle-class person. All they talk about on TV is the middle-class people. What about us little people that's not making $17,000 and less? How about the homeless people? They don't even have a voice in this. How can they afford Obamacare? They can't even afford a housing. It's really got me up on arms which way to vote, and I'm ready for them to close the government down until they do solve this problem. Maybe then they will, the Democrats will work with the Republicans and get this issue settled.
All right, Ron. Robert Costa, how have Democrats countered some of the argument that there are all of these glitches that are happening or set to happen with the debut of the health care law, with the exchanges anyway, on Tuesday, October 1st?
You see, many Democrats are a little bit hesitant about Obamacare's implementation. They look at the delay of the employer mandate, they look at other problems with the law, and they think maybe it's not the best political thing to be carrying around and championing. But at the same time, although Democrats like Joe Manchin of West Virginia in the Senate, they're supportive of a one-year delay of Obamacare, most Democrats believe this is the keystone to the Obama presidency. And as much as it has its problems, they don't want to walk away from it. This is something they're going to run on in 2014 as they try to win back the House, and they believe it's a key thing for them politically. And so as much as there's problems, I don't think Democrats feel pressure to do anything to delay it or to fund it.
We're watching C-SPAN coverage of the U.S. House. Robert Costa, our guest. In this previous question vote, the House will vote on the rule for debate for two changes to the Senate CR that would, one, it would delay the implementation of the health care law until 2015, and the other one would also get rid of the 2.3 medical device tax. Let's get back to calls. To New Jersey, Parlin, New Jersey, independent line. Hello to Michael.
Yes, hi, how are you? I'm
Doing fine.
Independent.
And I'm sitting here watching the proceedings, and I can't help but be so disappointed in the overall, I don't care whether it's Republican or Democrat, but the entire Senate, the entire representatives that's supposed to be there for the purpose of the people. The Republicans do know what they're doing. By taking the position that they are taking, they know that they're headed for a crash. They're not going to win anything. If they really want to get something done, Speaker Boehner, in my opinion, and I think everybody would agree, he is Speaker of the House, not part of the House. He is not supposed to be ruled by the Tea Party, the minority, who is backed by nothing but all of the 1% millionaires, not the average or middle-class people. In the meantime, he would step up and really declare and tell everybody, if he's any kind of a man, if he would stand up and say, I'm going to take a vote, but by all of the members of the House, Democrat and Republican, let the majority rule.
Well, Robert Costa, reflecting some of Michael's comments, Bill King tweets at C-SPAN chat, that's the hashtag. He asks, how are 60 to 70 Tea Party congressional members causing this much trouble, and why can't Speaker Boehner control them?
It's a great question. I think that the caller's frustration is something you hear even within the halls of Congress, and it really comes down to a choice Speaker Boehner has to make. Does he want to proceed only with a Republican majority on any kind of policy change with the continuing resolution, or will he be willing to break the so-called Hastert rule? And that means if he breaks the Hastert rule, he opens the floor to allow a continuing resolution to fund the government, to have Democratic votes and Republican votes. But Speaker Boehner is resistant to doing that, because politically, within the House Republican Conference, if he has something passed that has both Democrats and Republicans, but it doesn't have a majority of Republicans, his power will be diminished. It will seem like Speaker Boehner couldn't get Republicans to support his own policy. That's why you don't see Speaker Boehner coming to the floor with a, quote, clean CR that funds the government and only funds the government and has a coalition of votes. He just was resistant to do that because he knows it will anger his own Republicans within his conference.
Here's Fort Mill, South Carolina. Atika is on our others line. Good evening.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Atika. And first of all, I would like to say I am an independent, but I do not want someone like Sebelius, the government death panel, calling the shots, making the rules on who gets in medical care and who does not. I cannot believe that any Democrat or Republican would support having our medical decisions made by an impersonal, uncaring, heartless government, and when it should be made by the people. What about the little girl, the 10-year-old girl that needed a lung, and Sebelius was heartless enough not to tell her?
Robert Costa, Atika mentions Kathleen Sebelius. In a normal year, wouldn't something like the funding of the health care law come under debate on the Health and Human Services spending for the next year? Why didn't that happen this year?
Because you see Republicans trying to make a broader argument. They don't want to just have the argument within Congress about bureaucratic funding. They're still trying to make a political case. And it seems it's been a long time for Republicans making this case. They ran on 2010 on Obamacare. They ran on 2012 on repealing Obamacare. And as they look ahead to 2014, they're trying to do it again. So instead of working within the congressional frameworks and within the committees to try to chip away at the law, they're trying in one fell swoop to get rid of the whole thing.
Democrats line next, Mobile, Alabama, and this is Stephen. Go ahead.
Yes, I voted for President Obama on the saying that we'd be able to keep our own health insurance and stuff like that. Well, we was notified yesterday that we're losing our health insurance due to the Obamacare. Now, I just checked online, and to have the same coverage, it went from $134 a month to over $700 a month just for me and my wife. Now, why can't they fund it to where it's cheaper for us? Now, they're saying we should be able to keep it. Well, we're not. How come the president don't want to get on this plan? He don't believe in his own plan himself? And I'd like to thank you for your coverage you're having tonight on this, too.
Okay, Stephen. Robert Costa.
when you talk to House conservatives and Senate conservatives, they really talk about that caller and callers like him that are calling the senatorial offices and the House offices, because they believe there is a widespread movement against Obamacare. There's skepticism about the implementation of the delays and the exchanges that start on October 1st. And as that builds out there and it gets fed back to Republican office holders, they think there's a sentiment growing in the country that will support them should the government shut down over a delay for defunding of Obamacare. But the White House and Senate Democrats are banking that that caller does not represent a majority, that he's part of a conservative base that doesn't speak for the entirety of the country. And so that's really the battle right now. It's a battle of perception between Republicans who think there is a groundswell against the law and Democrats who think there is not.
Robert Costa, you wrote yesterday, Friday, about the influence of Senator Ted Cruz of Texas on House Republicans. What's been his role?
It's been a fascinating story over the past 2 or 3 days to see how much Senator Ted Cruz, a Republican from Texas, who has yet to even complete 1 year in office, is already maneuvering not only within the Senate, but to influence House Republicans. He's huddled with House conservatives behind the scenes. On Thursday, he had conference calls with House conservatives and then met at night over dinner and drinks, talking about how House conservatives can oppose the leadership and fight Speaker Boehner. That's almost an unprecedented move for a senator to mingle with House affairs and work against their own party's leadership in the other chamber.
Our C-SPAN viewers are seeing the clock winding down on this first vote, this 15-minute vote, a previous question vote, and then the vote on the rule for the 2 amendments to be considered, and also the military pay bill that is coming up tonight on the House floor. Our guest is Robert Costa with the National Review, their Washington editor. And let's go to calls. Let's go to our calls in a Republican line. Levi is in Anderson, Indiana. Levi, hello.
Hey, how you doing? One of the things I have to say tonight is I think that the biggest issue right now is the American people need to hold their representatives accountable, whether it be Republican, Democrat, Independent, whether it be the House or the Senate. And they should be held.
Well, Levi, I think I'm losing you there. Let's move on and see if we get one more call here before this vote wraps up. Scarsdale, New York, on the Independent line. And Yuma, hello. Go ahead. I think
hello.
You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi. I'm calling because I'm absolutely confused by what is going on. This is not fair. These people are not representing the public. These people are representing their own interests, the president downwards. The president should be under the same health care law, and all the Congress should be under the same health care law which they are selling to the public. The public is not in favor of it. How do you expect somebody to pay for health care when they are doing 2 jobs which are not full-time jobs? They're jumping from one job to the other job because the economy is so bad. How do you expect them to pay? Where are they going to pay for it?
And Robert Costa, will before we let you go, we'll go back to your comments on the Vitter Amendment. What's the status of members of Congress? How do they get health care, and how would this proposed possible Vitter Amendment change that again?
It's a great question. I think the caller reflects a lot of the talk within House Republican conference right now. They just met tonight at 8:30 in the basement of the Capitol, and they went over the strategy for this vote, a 1-year delay of Obamacare alongside a medical device tax repeal. At the same time, the leadership is huddling and trying to come up with the next step, and that involves this Vitter Amendment, which would end congressional subsidies for congressional staffers and members that are entering into Obamacare's exchanges. And this is gaining popular traction because, as the caller said, many Americans feel members of Congress and their staff should be at the same level playing field as other people who are entering into the Obamacare exchanges. And politically, the House leadership thinks this could be an option, though they have not decided on it, as this shutdown drama unfolds, and they could attach the Vitter Amendment to end these kind of subsidies along with the CR perhaps on Sunday or Monday.
Let's get one more call for you. Janet is on our Democrats line in Michigan City. Hi there.
Hi. I would like to blame the Republicans if we shut down. You asked who would be at fault. I will say the Republicans. This has been one of the worst. Well, it's been going on since Obama has became elected. Okay, this has started. They hate this man, and anything they can do to discredit him or anything else, they will do. I don't understand the health care myself, okay? And I'm 63. But I'm willing to give it a chance. But these people just want to prolong it so they can get more people. 1 year they want. That's to get more people and more lies out. I don't know it all, but I believe there is lies, okay? And I definitely believe a lot of them are coming from the Republican Party.
Janet, thanks for your call. Thanks for all your calls. We'll have more of them coming up in the rule vote next. Robert Costa, lastly, as we sit here on Saturday night, what do you think the odds are here that on Tuesday the government will, on some level, shut down?
I think on some level it will shut down. I don't think we can expect a month-long shutdown or some kind of long standoff, but we could expect a 2 to 3 day shutdown as Republicans try to come up with a solution that can unite the members in both the House and the Senate. And right now, at this hour on Saturday night, Republicans just aren't united behind a strategy, so I think we are, for the moment, heading toward a shutdown.
We will let Robert Costa go. Really appreciate you joining us this evening. He's the Washington editor for the National Review. You can read his reporting at nationalreview.com, and he's on Twitter at Robert Costa, NRO. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
And the House continues with this previous question vote on the rule. Just a couple of things. We will continue with your phone calls when the rule vote comes up next. That'll be a 5-minute vote, so we'll try to get to as many calls as you can. Also want to let you know that we have reposted our question on Facebook. The question is, who is responsible for the current fiscal stalemate in Washington? Congressional Democrats, Congressional Republicans, or the White House? And the way it's early, the voting 35 say Congressional Republicans, the White House 31, Congressional Democrats 10. You can log in and vote, facebook.com/C-SPAN. We'll also check some tweets in just a bit. The hashtag is C-SPAN Chat. You're watching live coverage of the U.S. House on C-SPAN.
Does any member wish to change his vote? Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? On this vote, the yeas are 229. The nays, 192. The previous question is ordered. The question is on the adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. 5-minute vote.
And this is the vote on the rule for the two changes, the two amendments to the Senate passed continuing resolution. It's also the rule that would govern the debate over the military pay bill. This is ensuring that U.S. military personnel would be paid in the event of a government shutdown. So the changes to the Senate passed continuing resolution, the House changes, the proposed amendments, one would repeal the medical device tax that went into effect this year. The other would delay the implementation of the health care law until January 1st of 2015. It would also allow companies and insurance providers to opt out of mandated birth control coverage for religious or for moral reasons. 5-minute vote. We're going to open up our phone lines again. Here are the numbers: 202-585-3885 for Democrats, 202-585-3886 for Republicans, all others 202-585-3887. We have the poll on Facebook, facebook.com/C-SPAN, and also your hashtag is C-SPAN chat for your comments on the debate this evening. Let's go to Mount Airy, Maryland, and Tammy on our Democrats line.
Yes, I would like to urge my Democratic representatives to vote on the one-year delay of Obamacare. I'm really thinking about converting to Republican at this point in time. It seems like our Republican representatives in the U.S. are representing the people and listening to the people rather than their own, passing their own judgments. So I would like to urge my Democratic representatives to vote for the one-year delay on Obamacare, at least one-year delay, so we can figure out what's in it.
Next to Hardyville, Kentucky, Sam is on the Independence line. Sam, hello.
Yeah. Hello, how you doing?
Doing fine, Sam. Go ahead.
I just think it's a disgrace that it's come down to this, and they don't obey the law, and you're supposed to go by the law of the land, and they ought to be against the law to break the law and fight a law that's already been put in effect. That's what I think. Ted Cruz, Banger ought to set his foot down and tell him to hush and listen to him. He's the leader. He's the one that ought to be telling everybody what to do. I think he would do the right thing if he could get them to stop.
As far as we can tell, the Senate will be back in session on Monday, and of course live coverage out of that on C-SPAN 2 p.m. Eastern on Monday, rather. Here's Jim in Eureka, Montana. He's on our Republican line.
Yeah, my biggest concern is, I know this is kind of anecdotal, but everybody that I know that does not have health insurance, they're not really planning on signing up for any exchanges. They're actually hoping to pay the fine. And I'm thinking, I don't know how many people are planning on paying the fine, but this could really bankrupt the whole system, and the train wreck is inevitable.
Well, there in Montana, Jim, do they have a website up for the exchange yet, or do you have information about that, or?
I have not seen that. And see, I'm a retired federal employee, but I have a brother. Actually, I have two brothers that don't have health insurance, and I have several friends that don't have health insurance, and they're hoping for Obamacare to cover them.
All right, thanks, Jim. Try to get to as much as we can. A couple of tweets here. David tweets at C-SPAN chat is the hashtag. Our company insurance will cost the company and employees more. We have to choose how much we are willing to pay. Also, D. Lang says, I believe they're both responsible. The whole thing stems from passing a bill they didn't read. Shame on them. And to Tiff Dog says, Republicans are responsible for any shutdown. Dems have given them parameters, but they refuse to adhere. Those tweets are referring back to our Facebook poll asking you who's responsible. It's up now, facebook.com/C-SPAN. Congressional Republicans responsible, 311. The White House, 138. Congressional Democrats, 78. Try to get to a bit more of your phones later on. This vote is wrapping down. This is the rule, the two amendments to the Senate-passed continuing resolution.
The yeas are 231, the nays are 191. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The unfinished business is the vote on the motion of the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Barletta, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 2251 as amended, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
House Calendar Number 59, H.R. 2251. A bill to designate the United States Courthouse located at 118 South Mill Street in Fergus Falls, Minnesota as the Edward J. Davitt United States Courthouse.
Question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill as amended? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
And moments ago, the House approving the rule for debate, a total of 1 hour and 40 minutes for the two amendments to the continuing resolution, also for consideration of that military pay bill, the bill that would ensure that members of the military are paid in the event of a government shutdown. 5-minute vote, and then up to 1 hour and 40 of debate on the, again, the two amendments and the military pay bill. This is a bill that was debated earlier in the week on renaming a federal courthouse. We are looking at your tweets on C-SPAN chat. Barbara says it's a sad day when a radical faction can take over the House of Representatives or destroy our government. Gregory says both are responsible. He's talking about congressional Republicans and Democrats. Over partisanship, he tweets, is ruining our country. George Washington warned about this in his farewell address. Ed tweets that he thinks it should be a 1-year delay on mandates for everyone or for no one, no exemptions for Barack Obama supporters. It's C-SPAN chat is our hashtag, and we've reposted our question about who's responsible for the current fiscal stalemate in Washington. Congressional Democrats, Republicans, or the White House. So far, votes for those who say congressional Democrats, 104. Congressional Republicans, 372, and the White House, 168. You're watching live House coverage here on C-SPAN and simulcast on C-SPAN Radio.
On this vote, the yeas are 416, the nays are 4, two-thirds being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended. The bill is passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table without objection. The title is amended. For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, may we have order?
The House will be in order. The House will be in order. Too much. The House will be in order. I'd ask members to take their conversations off the floor and out of the aisles. On both the majority side and the minority side. The House will be in order. For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 366, I call up House Joint Resolution 59 with a Senate amendment thereto and have a motion at the desk.
The clerk will report the title of the joint resolution, designate the Senate amendment, and designate the motion.
House Joint Resolution 59, joint resolution making continuing appropriations for fiscal year 2014 and for other purposes. Senate amendment. Mr. Rogers of Kentucky moves that the House concur in the Senate amendment to the House Joint Resolution 59 with each of the two amendments printed in House Report Number 113-238.
Pursuant to House Resolution 366, the motion shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations. The gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Rogers, and a gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Lowy, will each control 30 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky, but the gentleman will suspend. The House will be in order. I'd ask members to take their conversations off the floor. On the minority side, Chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the further consideration of H.J. Res. 59.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for as much time as he may consume. The gentleman will suspend. The House will be in order. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to move forward with H.J. Res. 59, the continuing resolution that will keep the doors of the government open after the end of the fiscal year on Monday. It's unfortunate that yet again we are in this situation, facing yet another shutdown showdown with no solution to our many fiscal problems in sight. Funding the government with a continuing resolution should not be Plan A, Plan B, even Plan Z. But our challenges are many. Our timeline is short, so passing this CR today is absolutely essential. The House passed a version of this bill last Friday. The Senate amended it, sent it back to us to consider once again. The motion before us agrees to the Senate amendments with 2 further amendments, one delaying Obamacare for a year and one repealing the medical device tax. Included in each amendment are 3 changes that I've requested. The first changes the date back to the House-passed end date of the CR of December 15th to give us more time to pass the fiscal 014 appropriations bills. I've been flexible on this issue from the very beginning, but this longer time frame will help us avoid the potential need for another CR in the interim. The second change would make a technical change to an anomaly for the Eisenhower Commission added by the Senate. This change will simply continue the status quo of a hold on that project. And finally, the third will add a new anomaly to extend the authority for the United States to issue special immigrant visas for the length of this CR. This authority is necessary to ensure that the visas continue for Iraqis who assisted the U.S. during the war, many of whom put their lives on the line to do so. It's become clear that since this CR was first introduced, that this new provision has wide bipartisan support. Mr. Speaker, one of our primary jobs as members of Congress is to provide our people with important programs and services only the federal government can provide, and to ensure that these services are available. This bill does that. However, it's also our responsibility to address the nation's fiscal challenges head-on with a realistic and pragmatic approach that will allow for attainable solutions. With a debt ceiling looming, a fragile economy in recovery, and the threat of additional draconian sequestration cuts that will gut our national defense, it's essential that we come together to find common ground. One side cannot do it alone, and inaction or failure on these crucial issues could lead to disastrous results for our people and our nation for years to come. Let me take a moment now to remind us all of just a few of the consequences if the government were to shut down. Our troops will not be paid, and national security will be put at risk. Our borders will weaken. Our most vulnerable citizens, the elderly, and our veterans may not get the assistance they rely upon. Our businesses, facing great uncertainty, will take a hit. Our economy will suffer. We must act responsibly to keep our government open and our country on stable economic footing. Now and in the near future, we must also act as productive partners to keep the nation safe, provide our people with essential services, rein in unsustainable entitlement programs, and secure a responsible and realistic federal budget. And we must remember that we do this not just for ourselves and our districts, but we do it for the nation as a whole. I hope that today, with the countdown to shutdown clocks ticking away, that my colleagues will understand that funding the government is one of those essential duties. And I ask you to vote yes on this continuing resolution. I reserve.
General reserves his time. The gentlelady from New York is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume to discuss the majorities and transitions.
The gentlelady from New York is recognized for as much time as she may consume.
The bill the House is considering tonight takes yet another step towards total dysfunction. Instead of working with Democrats to prevent a shutdown, the majority has gotten even more extreme by writing a bill that has no chance of becoming law and will be the 43rd vote on repealing or undermining the Affordable Care Act. While the old saying goes, if at first you don't succeed, try and try again, I say to my colleagues across the aisle tonight, stop trying. You will not succeed in giving our medical choices back to the insurance companies and keeping health insurance costs too high for too many families. And it continues the Republican war on women by allowing a woman's employer to determine what safe and legal health services she can access. The bill the Senate returned to the House would not increase spending, but one provision within the jurisdiction of Ways and Means would cost $30 billion. The majority is wasting time as we get closer and closer to a shutdown because we all know this bill will be dead on arrival in the Senate. Here's a sample of what the House majority shutdown will do. Small business owners will stop receiving federal loans to hire and expand their businesses. The National Institutes of Health will stop receiving new patients. Veterans' benefits will be disrupted and housing loans for middle-class families will be put on hold. These are the painful results of the Republicans' refusal to act responsibly. They walked out of negotiations with the President last year. They ignored the President's deficit reduction plan and his budget. They refused to go to conference on a budget resolution, and they repeatedly voted down Democrat amendments to replace sequestration. And now, when it's time to fulfill our most basic task of funding government operations, Republicans push us further to the brink of a shutdown. Anyone who votes to amend the Senate bill is voting for a shutdown. Vote no on the Republican shutdown proposal. I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves her time. The gentleman from Kentucky.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 5 minutes to the Vice Chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee of the House, gentlelady from Nashville, Tennessee, Ms. Blackburn.
Gentlelady from Tennessee is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of Amendment Number 1 and to offer this to the continuing resolution in the bill that is bringing us to the floor tonight, and how vital it is that we address the funding needs of this nation, and how vital it is that we do it in a manner that is respectful of the American people and of our constituents. One of the things they have repeatedly said is they want to make certain that we delay the onset of Obamacare, and that is what we are going to do. Now, included in the amendment would be the delay of the 20 new taxes of Obamacare. It would delay the individual mandate and the costly surtax for noncompliance. It would delay the employer mandate, the Medicaid expansions, the new exchanges, and all those subsidies to try to get people to enroll. It would delay the dozens of enforcement powers which Obamacare gives to the IRS, and it would delay the collection of all your personal information and data by the navigators and those seeking to put this program into effect with these exchanges. So that is what this amendment would do. Now, why are we doing this? Number one, this is a program that is too expensive to afford. We have seen that already it has tripled in cost. From its $860 billion estimate, it is up to $2.6 trillion. We know that it is making $600 billion in cuts to Medicare. We know that it is not ready for prime time. There have been 1,200 waivers given to this program. People that are friends of the administration that have gone seeking to be opted out. It's not good for the American people. There have been 19 administrative and presidential delays of this program. We also have learned that there are missed deadlines. We see the impact that it's having on our hospitals. They're laying off people. Hospital doors are closing. Jobs are being lost. Insurance costs are escalating. They have missed 47% of all their deadlines as they have sought to put this into place. And the list goes on and on. But most important is what we hear from our constituents, what we hear from the American people, the rate shock that is out there. And with my constituents, I have a small business owner who wrote me this week. Her insurance cost is going up 5 times. 5 times over what it is right now. A teacher with the husband and 2 children, 105%. We also have people that are writing in, and they're talking about how disappointed they are. They had a plan they liked, but they can't keep it now. One that said, look, our insurance would cost more than what we make. We would be paying our employer $71.50. Another who said they've lost their insurance, the reason they were given, because of Obamacare, discontinued due to Obamacare. This is what we're hearing from our constituents. Parents of children, a family, a child, type 1 diabetes, they need those reimbursement accounts. They're being cut in half. They're not able to keep that. An employer whose employees are seeing their out-of-pocket expense go up, you know what that amounts to? For this family, it's a $7,600 pay cut. So what we do is come to the floor tonight to say it's not ready. We are seeing the impact of delay after delay that is being done by this administration. And what we are saying is it is time, as a fairness issue to the American people, delay the whole thing. Delay it for a year. Continue to work on it. Make certain that we listen to the American people and respond to their wish. Delay Obamacare.
Time of the
I yield
gentlelady
back.
has expired. Gentlelady from New York.
I am pleased to yield 2.5 minutes to the distinguished ranking member on appropriations, Mr. Laura of Connecticut.
The gentlelady from Connecticut is recognized for 2.5 minutes.
Let me begin by quoting Sir Walter Scott. What a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. This amendment is an exercise in deception. It is designed to shut the government down. It drastically underfunds the fundamental priorities of the American people, and it tries yet again to delay families' access to affordable health care. We do not have time for this sort of recklessness. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke warned us that the automatic across-the-board cuts could cost us as many as 750,000 jobs in 2013. The majority wants to make these cuts permanent, regardless of the job loss, damage to our economy, or harm to working families across the country. And because of the deep cuts enshrined here, over 57,000 children lose access to early learning through Head Start. These children never get that opportunity back. The biomedical research that saves lives is being curtailed, delayed, or lost. Educational programs are sharply reduced for over 1 million of our most disadvantaged kids, even though 1 in 5 children currently live in poverty. Hundreds of thousands of unemployed adults are losing access to job training. Low-income seniors lose out on 5 million congregate and home-delivered meals. Mental health programs are being gutted. And with this funding, labor, health, and education programs are slashed 17%. Beyond the deep cuts, the Republican majority is once again trying to use the budget process to take the government hostage unless we delay the Affordable Care Act. And because of the Affordable Care Act, Americans with pre-existing conditions finally have coverage. Women's health is finally on an equal footing. Maternity and pediatric care is covered. Preventive care can be obtained with no out-of-pocket costs. The donut hole is closing for seniors. Young people stay on their parents' plans. It empowers patients and doctors, and yes, insurance companies no longer can make the decision about whether or not you will get health insurance or not get it. The Affordable Care Act is, at last, affordable health care for more American families. You know, we stand on the verge of a government shutdown, and instead of behaving responsibly, of working towards a reasonable compromise, the majority continues to put their personal, radical ideology above the fundamental priorities of the American people. This is wrong, and I urge my colleagues to vote against it, and I yield back.
Gentleman from Kentucky.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Stutzman.
The gentleman from Indiana is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Almost 3.5 years ago, many stood in this chamber claiming to have made history by overhauling our nation's health care laws and subjecting 1/6 of our economy to federal control. The American people disagree. They understand that Obamacare broke with history, and that's exactly the problem here today. When government mandates that every American buy insurance established by bureaucrats and threatens to severely tax them if they don't, that is unconstitutional mandate. This country was founded on the principles of limited government, personal responsibility, and consent of the governed. But Obamacare is based on limitless government, bureaucratic arrogance, and a disregard of the will of the people. That is why 3.5 years ago, Washington broke with history. Washington ignored our country's founding principles. Back home, Hoosiers still know what this town forgot. They know that their freedom diminishes when government raises taxes, empowers bureaucrats, and issues oppressive mandates. That's exactly why Obamacare was unpopular 3 years ago, and it is unpopular 3 days ahead of its implementation.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
Gentlelady
from New York.
I'm pleased to yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from California, Ms. Lee.
Gentlelady from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. I want to thank the gentlelady for yielding.
I rise in strong opposition to the Republican amendments that are designed, quite frankly, to shut the government down. It's no secret that the Tea Party Republicans came here not as public servants, but to destroy and decimate our government. And to add insult to injury, they want to destroy and dismantle the Affordable Care Act, which is the law of the land and was upheld by the Supreme Court. This is morally wrong and is lawless, quite frankly. And not to mention that they want to put insurance companies once again back in charge of the health care decisions that should be made by our constituents. This hostage-taking must end. Mr. Speaker, why in the world would any member of Congress want to jeopardize the jobs of our dedicated government workers who provide desperately needed services to millions of our constituents and who, by the way, have their own families to feed? Well, today, the Tea Party extremists who came here to shut down the government will see their dream come true. These dangerous amendments would hurt children, seniors, families, yes, the most vulnerable, and would create havoc and uncertainty in so many lives. But it's their first step to create a country really, quite frankly, based on a free-for-all, you know, a survival of the fittest, one that no one will recognize. That's what happens when there is no government, Mr. Speaker. We should reject these irresponsible, dangerous, and un-American amendments. They will shut down the and the American people, quite frankly, do not deserve this.
Time of the gentlelady has expired. The gentleman from Kentucky.